Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Cyan Proctor, and it's a real pleasure to be here to share with you my space story. I recently learned that I am going to be going to space, and I want to talk to you about my journey to this epic moment. So I'm going to just share my screen with some of my PowerPoint slides. So this is my Space2inspire story. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I ended up, going to space in a couple of months, but where that all began. And my space story really begins on the island of Guam. And so I was born here on the island of Guam back on 1970. Guam is located in the South Pacific on the Marianas Trench. So that's the Marianas right there. Here is Japan, here's Australia, New Zealand's over here. And so why was I born on this island? Well, because my dad was working for a NASA contractor during the Apollo missions. So when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, my family was on Guam and my dad helped with that. And I was actually born 8.5 months after Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon. So I like to think of myself as a moon celebration baby. And I grew up with Neil Armstrong's autograph to my father, thanking him for all of his help during the Apollo 11 missions, and all of these kind of certificates and memorabilia to my dad. This is Neil Armstrong when he came to Guam, and one of the pictures that my dad had. And so even though my family left the space industry after I was born, I still had all of this space stuff around me growing up as a kid. And I really wanted to be a military aviator and then eventual astronaut. So the F-16, this plane right here, was my favorite plane when I was a kid. And I wanted to go into the military and become a fighter pilot because I saw being a fighter pilot as the way to becoming an astronaut. So this is the shuttle, the space shuttle. And when I was a kid, when I was your age, this is what I used to watch astronauts launch into space on. And so I really saw myself eventually becoming an astronaut by becoming a military pilot. But then a couple of things happened and I wasn't going to be able to be a military pilot. So I thought, well, I'll never be an astronaut. But that was okay because I was going to go off and I was going to get my degrees in STEM. I, from an early age, loved science, technology, engineering, and math. I really excelled at that. I love being curious and exploring and just going off and creating new things and being inventive. And so I went to Edinburgh University in Pennsylvania, and I got my undergrad degree in environmental science. And then I went to Arizona State University to get my master's in geology. So I'm a geoscientist. A geoscientist is someone that goes out and explores our world. And then I got my PhD in science education because not only am I a geoscientist, but I'm also an educator. I'm a teacher. And so I have been teaching at South Mountain Community College for the past 21 years. And during that time, again, I've become a geo explorer. So I got my scuba certification because most of our planet is water. And our oceans play a big part in regulating the climate of our world. I also became a pilot because when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a pilot and learn how to fly. So I ended up becoming that. And then I've traveled and taught all around the world. And so some of you might recognize this statue. That's Easter Island, and that's pictures from when I got to go there. And so for the past 21 years, I really took advantage of being a scientist and using my STEM to travel around the world. But the dream of space has always been there with me. So as I'm talking to you, think about this. Would you want to go to space? And are you an A, ready to be blasted off? Or are you a B, like, will they pay me to go to space? Or are you a C, somebody who just is like, I like being home, there's no better place than Earth? And so for me, I always have been an A, and I've had role models like Mae Jemison, who was the first Black female in space. And so I always wanted to follow in her footsteps to some degree. But I didn't know how NASA selected astronauts until I was in my late 30s. And so back when I was 38, a friend of mine said, NASA's looking for astronauts, you should apply. So imagine that when somebody says you should apply to be an astronaut because they think you have all the right characteristics. But I didn't know what those characteristics were. So when I opened up the link that showed what NASA was looking for at that time, I realized that I had my PhD, I had my pilot's license, I was scuba certified, I don't speak any Russian, but I had traveled and taught around the world, so I had cultural experience. So out of this list, I was very well qualified. So I decided to apply for the 2009 NASA astronaut selection process. And what happened was that year, NASA had about 3,500 people apply. And from that, they ended up selecting 9 new astronauts. I was not one of the people selected. It was a no. I got all the way down to here where there was the yes, no phone call. And when they called me, instead of saying, yes, you're an astronaut, they said, no, sorry, we didn't pick you. Please try again in the future. Now you can imagine I was really sad and disappointed that I didn't get selected, but that didn't stop me from pursuing my dreams and continuing to explore. And so what I did was I took this experience of going through the NASA astronaut selection process. During that process, I met all of these astronauts. I got to do all of these fun things and see all of the technology and equipment. And I even got medical. And all of this experience just made me want to be an astronaut even more. And what did I do? I became what is called an analog astronaut. An analog astronaut is somebody who engages in human spaceflight training and research, but here on Earth. So analog astronauts don't get to go up to space. They just go and live in Moon and Mars simulations around the world. So this here, this white dome, is a Mars simulation located on the big island of Hawaii. And I lived in this dome not just once, but twice. And so the high seas habitat sits on the big island of Hawaii at about 8,000 feet. And it's a dome, as you can see here, but it's not that big. It's about 900 square feet of usable space. So you can imagine your crew, me and 5 other individuals, living in this habitat for 4 months together. That's right. I lived in the high seas habitat for 4 months with this crew down in the lower left-hand corner. The 6 of us lived together in that dome, and we were investigating food strategies for long duration space flight. So think about this. What would you want to eat on the moon or Mars? Now, what's fun about living in the high seas habitat is that we got to conduct all kinds of research to advance human spaceflight, but we also got to go out and explore. And every time we left the habitat, we had to have on a space suit. And so this is us going out and investigating lava tubes and the geologic terrain and all of those things, just like you would do on Mars, but here on Earth. And so what we do is we do these kinds of simulations so that when we eventually send people to Mars, we're more prepared. I lived in the high seas habitat in 2012 with the crew down in the lower left-hand corner. Then I went to Poland and I lived in the Linares habitat, and that was a moon simulation back in 2016. And then just in 2020, I lived in the high seas habitat again with the first all-female crew. So you can see this was my crew. And from that experience, I actually wrote the Meals for Mars cookbook, which is right here, which is all about how we can use freeze-dried fruits, meats, and vegetables to be able to be more sustainable with our cooking. So how do you go from being an analog astronaut to an actual astronaut? Well, I am very fortunate that I just recently won a seat with the Inspiration 4 crew. And so what that is an upcoming mission with SpaceX. And what we're going to do is we are going to go into space for 3 days and then come back to Earth. And so this is my crew right here. I have my commander, Jared, and then our mission specialist, who is Chris, and our medical officer, Haley, and then there's me. I am going to be the pilot. And so I am going to fly the Crew Dragon spacecraft. Well, it's autonomous, so it flies itself. How about that? An autonomous spacecraft that flies itself. But as the pilot, I'm going to make sure that our Dragon is on course. So if you've ever wanted to fly a Dragon into space, well, that's what I'm going to do. This is our Dragon. This is the SpaceX Dragon capsule. And what's unique about our Dragon capsule is we've got this little thing right up here that's called a cupola. And that is when we open up our top dome, we will be able to look out on our beautiful planet and see all kinds of cool things. That is what I'm looking forward to the most. Now, you may think that the reason why I was selected to go and be a part of this crew is because of my geology and my STEM background. But the reality of the situation is that I'm also a space artist. And I use my space to inspire those within my reach and beyond. And so I became a space artist in the last year. And this is an example of my space art. So I started off as a collage artist. So what these are items that I drew that I cut out and then I glued them together. And so this is an example of one of my art pieces. And these are two of my other art pieces. And so this one over here is a water drawing that I did. And this is a line drawing. Now, what's interesting about this line drawing over here is that it actually went down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. So remember where I was born, back on Guam? My artwork recently went all the way down to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And now I've got this piece of artwork back, and I'm going to take it with me up to space. So this is going to become one of the best traveled pieces of art in history, because it will have gone all the way to the bottom of the ocean and then all the way to outer space. So this is watercolor. This is line drawing using markers. And so I just wanted to tell you that for me, getting to go to space as an artist is an amazing thing. So I got selected because I'm an artist and poet to go to space, even though I have this strong science background. So when we're talking about science and technology and engineering and mathematics, they will give you the foundation for how you can lead an explorer's life. But then you can add in the art side and learn to express yourself through art and poetry. And both of those coming together can lead to extraordinary things. They certainly have for me. So I invite you to unleash your unique space to inspire those within your reach and beyond. Thank you.